first vineyards were planted here in the 1850s by Swiss wine growers who came here to grow Bordeaux varieties, which we now know were being put into barrel, shipped back into the Bordeaux wine trade.
Okay.
So Yarra was known as the Bordeaux of the South. And so it was their way of hedging difficult vintages in Bordeaux. They didn't have the label restrictions that we have today. Basically, as long as it was Bordeaux style wine, they could label it and call it Bordeaux. And that's what kept the industry flourishing here, because we Australians were not table wine drinkers, we were fortified drinkers. And there's very little table wine was drunk in Australia right through until the 1960s. So we drank beer and we drank fortified wines. So this valley supplied basically table wines into the UK wine trade. At the start of World War I, the ships had trouble getting through. There were blockades and all sorts of things going on. And during the period of World War I, virtually all the growers went out of business. And that's what brought the wine business in the Yarra Valley to an abrupt end. By the end of World War I, there was no one producing wine in the Yarra Valley. And the first new plantings didn't start until the 1960s. But this time it was for table wine production for the Australian market. In summation, it's closer to Burgundy than it is to Bordeaux. And that really reflects what we do here well, and that is Pinot and Chardonnay go very well in our cooler years. Cabernet Sauvignon, Syrah, things like that tend to go better in our warmer years. So we kind of sit on the fence a bit, and it's kind of vintage determinant as to which varieties are best. We don't have the restrictions of France, so we can grow what we like in any appellation. Secondly, though, and when you get to this vineyard we're going to, you'll see why, we actually have the advantage of multiple aspects. And we work those aspects quite hard. So on some aspects we will be growing Cabernet Sauvignon, and on the other side of it we'll be growing Pinot Noir. And it works because, you know, we're getting really good north aspect for the Cabernet Sauvignon, and where we don't want that much warmth and heat, we'll put it around to the west or the east and put Pinot Noir.
What are the trends in planting and production, Phil? I mean, can they be identified?
The Yarra is increasing its production and plantings of Pinot and Chardonnay. Okay. And that is because there's more demand for them. And secondly, there is a regional style that's starting to get some attention. Yeah. And you know, our Pinots tend to be very different to the New Zealand Pinots. You know, to me, you know, particularly Otago, it's all about extract and weight, and they're gorgeous. Whereas here, it's more about perfume and elegance. And that's partly because of the viticultural differences, but it's also partly because of the way we as producers and growers philosophically approach it.
The group's already been to the Mornington on Monday,
yes.
And I know it's very much broad brush, but if you were going to describe a stylistic difference between Yarra and Mornington Pinot, what could that be? Very broad brush, you know?
You'll see less herbaceous here.
Okay, yeah.
You tend to see herbaceous there quite a bit, but attractive herbaceous, not unattractive.
Yeah, lifted.
And they will tend to work with stems more.
Okay.
Because it kind of works.
Yeah.
Whereas here you'll see probably less reliance on stems and more reliance on extremely gentle extraction, going for perfume and elegance. The pHs will be lower here.
Okay.
You'll hardly ever see acid addition here. Because it's not needed, and therefore you'll see finer Pinots. Having said that, though, you know, who makes the better Pinot? I don't know.
No, I mean,
that side you've got the Great Australian Divide. It starts just down there a bit and it heads all the way to Queensland. Once you get in the middle of there, you're still in a total wilderness area. A little two-man helicopter about 4 years ago was flying from Moorabbin, which is a domestic airport just out of Melbourne, flying to Sydney, with 2 guys in it, and it went down out there, and it took them 2 years to find the wreckage.
No, really?
It's so dense and so hard to get in, and so hard and there's roads going through, there's ski resorts in there, but the major part of the Great Divide is a wilderness, so you can go there and lose yourself forever. So you know, we're just not that far from serious wilderness. The Great Divide's got an important role viticulturally in that the prevailing weather direction is southwest. It's the direction of the southwest trades. Okay, you remember your geography, the Roaring Forties and all that, the way the sea clippers used to get around the world. They used to ride the southwest trades. The prevailing direction's that way. Wind comes that way, the weather comes this way. This is the first orographic effect, in other words, obstacle effect to the weather that forces the warm air upwards, and it dumps rain. So we get significant rainfall through here on this side of the Great Divide, and that's what makes these regions work. Also, we're elevated a bit, and so we're into a true continental or alpine climate, which is that sort of cold winters. You know, our average temperature, we get down to 0 here quite regularly in winter. We'll see snow very shortly, just briefly on top of those hills. It won't stay there. But you go an hour and a half in and you're into the first of our ski resorts that will have a season for up to 4 months a year. So we get those cold winters, but we get hot summers. So our summer temperatures will average 34, 35 degrees centigrade.
What would the analogous region be in Europe? Northeastern Italy possibly?
I reckon.
Yeah, Trentino, Dolomites up there?
Yeah, similar.